Ready to go. We may not. Clerks will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Marty Van Ravensby, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation day will be given by our own T.C. Webster, Precinct 1 Field Operations Director. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Father God, this morning we come before your heavenly, interceding for our earthly poor. Father, since you all knowing, and Lord, since you place a righteous judge in this court and four divisions, and all of Tarrant County citizens know who they are. What's important, Father, is whom they are and whose they are in relation to you. In that light, Father, we ask you this morning that you use them to rightly divide the activities that affect the citizens of Tarrant County, and as always, they vote on one card. And as always, we ask it in Jesus' name.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, TC.
Thank you, T.C.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have several announcements for the court this morning. The first one on the agenda concerns the purchasing department. It is item 9K29, which is the sale of a 2007 Ford Crown Victoria. I'm going to ask that that particular item be removed from the agenda. The ISD chose not to purchase that vehicle, and it will be going on the auction, on our regular auction.
What number?
It is K29. On the paper agenda, it's on page 10, the very last one. Just a few other items. Our budget hearings will begin next Monday at 9 o'clock in the Commissioner's courtroom. I believe that all of you have received your copy of the proposed budget, some paper, some by electronic means. We've also given you a budget letter that, and we're meeting our mandates to bring that to you a week before we go into budget hearings. So if there's any questions, Ms. Schneider's not here this morning, but if there are any questions about the letter or the budget, you can contact our office or the budget office. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Snyder is in Houston and is the proud grandmother of a 5-pound, 11-ounce baby girl by the name of Hannah. So when she gets back, we just recently got the message. We hadn't gotten a picture yet, or we'd see if we could flash it up there, but we'll just have to, everybody will have to congratulate Debbie as she gets back. And
This is her first one.
I think that's right, and I think she was a little nervous that it was going to come next week, and we'd have had to have done this budget stuff without her, because we'd have run her out of here if she'd still been here. So we want to wish the best to her and her family. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our July 21st meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. It is the first Tuesday of the month, and as such, it is our employee recognition. And as I've looked down these names, there are going to be some very interesting challenges. So as I've said before, if it sounds like it, stand up. We're going to begin with our 5-year employees, and so as I call your name, please stand and remain standing until we've finished that particular group and we can recognize all of you together. Our first 5-year employee is William Allen with Information Technology. There's William. Brought his own cheering crowd there with him. Keith Caruth, Sheriff Confinement. Welcome. Now, if y'all start clapping like this for each one, we're going to be here till tomorrow. So as much as I like the ones that are coming up next, please kind of hold your applause till we get to the end of this group. Juan Castanon, Sheriff North Patrol. Charlotte Crow, District Clerk. There's Charlotte. Ricky Dominguez, Sheriff Confinement. Kristen Harmonson, Tax Office. Iselin Lowry with Sheriff Confinement. We'll never know.
Is there a Lowry present?
I am so going to enjoy that first time that I'm gone on the first Tuesday. Laura Michaels, Sheriff Confinement. Welcome. Lee Oliver, Sheriff Confinement. Eric Remington, Juvenile Services. All right. Anna Salazar, Facilities Management. Carla Smith, County Clerk. Gregory Smith, Sheriff Confinement. Joseph Sazerac, Sheriff Communications. Brian Thomas, Sheriff Confinement. Andrea Ergundez. Okay, did she stand up? Okay. She's in the Public Health Department. And how do you pronounce your last name? Yeah, well, I was close.
Not even.
These are our 5-year employees. Let's give them a big hand. Thank all of y'all very much. Our 10-year employees. Rachel Bund, Auditor's Office.
Rachel.
Deanne Kahn, Information Technology. Joel Garcia, Sheriff Confinement. Maria Guardian, Public Health. Did I get close? I like it when it happens every once in a while. Michael Holt, Sheriff Courts. Michael. Julia Murphy, Sheriff's Accounting. DeCarla Ori, Sheriff Confinement. I think she's standing up more on it sounds like than what I actually did. I actually get it right? Cynthia Veloquaz, Direct Program. Elvis Wells, District Attorney's Office. Gary Williams, Precinct 1 Maintenance. Jack Winchester, Facilities Management. Jack. And Justin Wooten, Sheriff Confinement. Let's give our 10-year employees a big hand. Now for our 15-year employees. Cynthia Barnes, the Auditor's Office. Cynthia. Brenda Clark, Elections. There she is. David Gutierrez, Facilities Management. Melissa Hankins, CSCD. David Hess, Sheriff Courts. Curtis Hilliard, Precinct 3 Administration. Hey, Curtis. Hey, Curtis. Daniel Pritchard, CSCD. Renee Rice, Sheriff Crime Scene. Bonnie Rucker, Sheriff Confinement. Todd Tiemann, Constable, Precinct 1. And Wyman Ward, Sheriff Confinement. Let's give our 15-year employees a hand. And now for our 20-plus year, we recognize them and pause and recognize them individually, and I get the opportunity to call and to talk with them, and it is a time that I enjoy very, very much. Our first 20-year employee is Vivian Atkinson with the District Clerk's Office. Has been there for 20 years. Started out in the civil area, and then after about 4 years, went to the criminal area for about 4 years, and then came back into the civil area, and has been there ever since. When I asked her about her more memorable moments, she said, I grew up in a military family, and as such, we traveled all the time. And she said, one of the memorable moments for me was reaching my 5-year mark with Tarrant County and being recognized for that. When I asked her what she liked most, it was the interesting people that she had an opportunity to work with, and just the job itself and the opportunities and challenges that it presents. Vivian, we appreciate very much the 20 years you've given to Tarrant County. Now, next would have been Donna Allen, who's with the County Clerk's Office and has been there for 20 years. When I called to talk with her, she said, I'm going to be on vacation. And I said, well, where are you going? She said, well, I'm going to Yellowstone. I said, I think I would trade the cool weather of Yellowstone for the hot weather of Tarrant County, so she was not able to be with us today. We had a lot of folks either out on vacation or who were out on business this particular month. Our next person, though, is Eddie Gay Johnson with the District Attorney's Office. Now, Eddie Gay has been with the county for 29 years, but we're recognizing her for 20 years. And she started out with Ruth Stewart in 71. And I really want to work on this one. Where's my personnel people? She started out with Ruth Stewart in 71 and worked there until 1974, and then left to have her child, and then came back in 76 and worked in the DA's office until 1982, when she left to stay at home with her kids for a while. Then she came back in 89, and this is where we seem to have picked up with her in the DA's office, and has been there ever since. So she's an office manager right now in the narcotics division. When I asked her about her more memorable moments, she said, she said the last 20 years have been great. So maybe if she can't remember the last 9 years, maybe we shouldn't worry too much about that either. But I asked her what she liked most, and she says she really loves her job, and she loves the people that she's had a chance to work with. And she really talked about, the experiences that she's had over the years and the different opportunities that she's had. When I asked her about anything else, she said, I'm going to retire at the end of this year. And that she had really, really enjoyed her time with the Tarrant County's DA's office, and especially with Tim Curry. I tell you what, Eddie Gay, we appreciate very, very much the 29 years that you've given to Tarrant County. Now, next was supposed to be Madonna Massey, who's with the Sheriff's Labor Detail, and she's been with the Sheriff's Labor Detail for 20 years. I've got this 29 stuck in my brain now. But she's not going to be here today because she is actually in Florida with her daughter, who is having her first baby, and therefore Madonna's first grandbaby. And I, having recently become a grandfather, understand exactly why she chose to be there. But I did give her a call, and I actually talked with her on Saturday, and everybody's doing great, and she's just as happy as she could be. So we'll, Sheriff, please tell her that we were thinking about her. Next is Charles Moore with Sheriff Warrants, 20 years. He also is not here today. He's in the, I guess he goes and picks up and delivers prisoners, and he is actually either in Corpus Christi or San Antonio today, one or the other, picking up prisoners. So he said he did not realize when he planned the trip that this was what, that he was going to miss this Tuesday, but he certainly would be thinking about us. Next is Susan Riley with Information Technology. There's Susan. She's been with us for 20 years. Started out in the tax area and was actually there for 14 years and really still is there. But you'll recall, several of us on the court will recall that a few years ago we took the IT folks and put all the IT folks under IT, even if they were dedicated in a particular department. And Susan is one of those individuals who is in IT but really is in tax and has been there for the whole 20 years that she's been with the county. When I ask her about her more memorable moments, and I think it really speaks to the folks that we have here and the family atmosphere that we have. Her husband passed away about 13 years ago, and she said the people treated her like a family and that she could not express the appreciation she had for the way folks came in from all over the department and were there for her and were there to help her through the times and just in any way possible. When I asked her what she liked most, obviously the people was the big thing, the benefits. She said, I've spent years in customer service and just loves it. And now, while she may have a different set of customers, she still sees her job as a customer service type job. She said, I just love the sense of community and the caring attitude that the folks in the county have for not only the employees, but also for the people that they have an opportunity to serve. I asked her if there was anything else, and she said she's grateful to have a job and one where people care so much for not only the employees, but for the public that they serve. Susan, thank you very, very much for the 20 years. Next would be Ken Rottenberry, who's in the Sheriff's Courts 20 years, but he is also out on vacation and would not be able to. I don't think he was going to as exotic a place as Yellowstone, but he was still on vacation. Next is Brigitte Wilson, District Clerk's Office. Brigitte here?
She's ill today.
Well, thank you. I got an opportunity to talk with her. She is the administrative clerk in the 396th Court. She said she loves what she does. She wouldn't want to work in any other area. When I asked her if she thought she'd be here this long, she said no. She said, I came here from Oklahoma. I felt like I'd be here for a few years and find another job. And 20 years later, she said, I'm still where I'm at, and I love what I'm doing, even if you still have stuff to work for Wilder. That was just kind of an afterthought there, Wilder. That didn't come from her. I just thought I'd throw that in.
I get Bridget here next Tuesday.
Next is Danny Price with the District Attorney's Office. Had been with us for 30 years, but also was not going to be able to make it down today. Next is Ron Servanel with CSCD, 30 years. Started out in pretrial release and spent about 4 years there, and then went over to CSCD in the residential program, and is now the technology liaison. When I asked him about his more memorable moments, I kind of got the impression that Ron got to start a lot of programs in the time that he was there. He helped start the residential program, then data analysis, which is gathering the information, gathering the data together, and then the IT section itself in the CSCD area. When I asked him what he liked most, he said it was getting to work with the treatment and making a difference in people's lives. And I really sensed from our discussion how important it was in that, and really trying to touch people's lives and to help them in hopefully turning around and getting through what had been a bad time for them. He's the liaison to the MHMR groups and also helps with the Homeless Coalition. So, Ron, we appreciate very, very much the 30 years you've given to Tarrant County. Next is Bob Tedford, Sheriff Patrol. There's Bob, 30 years. Now, usually when I talk with someone from the Sheriff's Department and I ask them where they started, they say, well, we started in the old Belknap jail, or we started in the confinement area. Bob is, I think, the only person that I've ever talked with that started out in patrol and has spent the entire 30 years with the county in the patrol area. And I think that speaks very highly of him and the job that he does. He said he didn't know of anyone else who had done that before, and I certainly had never heard of that. When I asked him about his more memorable moments, he said it was just seeing the stages of technology and advancements that have occurred within the county over the past 30 years, and especially in patrol. He said, when he started out, there was a radio, but it had 2 bands, and it was in the car. And if you got out of the car, you were on your own, and you had better hope that whatever happened outside of that car, that you could get back to the car, because that was the only form of communications. And so to move from there to the point of being able to have a mic and a radio on yourself when you got out of the car meant an awful lot. He said, starting out looking at the computers, the training on the electronics, all of those things, he said, it's been amazing to watch the transition from 30 years ago to today. When I asked him what he liked most about working for the county, he said, I cover a large area, and he said, what I like most is that the supervisors give you the freedom to work your area the way you feel like you can best work your area, and that there was that trust and respect for his judgment. And he said, you mess up, and they're going to watch you a little bit more closely, but they have this tendency to give you some leeway to do what you feel like's best because you get to know your area. He said it was a great group of folks that he's had a chance to work with over the 30 years. He said, I asked him if there was anything else, and he says the way everyone approaches their job, and then he said it's the whole attitude of to protect and serve, which we have written on the cars, and it sounds good, but you often wonder if anybody ever reads it. Well, I can tell you for sure that in this case, he does read it. Bob does read it, and he's read it for the 30 years that he's been with Tarrant County, and we appreciate that 30 years very much. Our last person that we're going to recognize today is Richard Guttenfelder, District Clerk's Office, for 35 years. Now, Richard anticipated my call and gave me a PDF file with information, and I read through that, and it's amazing. I mean, you can just see I can just see this whole organizational and how organized he is in everything that he does. He started out in the auditor's office. Well, he was supposed to start out in the auditor's office with Jack Benson, but because of budget constraints that particular year, he was going to have to wait 30 days before he could start. And Jack said, well, I've got a friend down in the district clerk's office. Why don't you go down there? I think they have a job, and you can apply for that job. Well, he did, and he got that job, and he's been in the district clerk's office ever since. He started out in the records area. In '79, he was promoted to the administrative clerk in the criminal district court number 4. Over the 35 years, he's worked in every department within the district clerk, currently serving as the manager over the criminal, civil, and family law areas. When I asked him about, or when we talked about the more memorable moments, he said, as administrative clerk in the criminal court 4, he was there for the last Cullen Davis trial. And so that, had to be an interesting performance. He began his first he actually began the microfilming of the court records. And when he actually started, everything was still being written in the books, and they were using typewriters. So at this point, we've come a long way over the last 35 years. When I asked what I liked most, it was never worked for an organization that cared more about its employees. Loved the people that he'd had a chance to work with, and was very proud of having the chance to work with Tom and the job. And
What
again,
was that?
Well, it was, remember, there was 2 Toms over there. Oh,
And one of you get accompanied to the jailhouse. Not me.
no, he did say that Tom, and I do agree, that Tom does a very good job and cares very much about running a good and efficient department and doing what's best for the citizens of Tarrant County. He met his wife, Marcia, 26 years ago while working in Tarrant County, and I'm sure Marcia is with you here today. Stand up. Thank you very much for allowing him to spend 35 years with Canada. Do you have someone else there next to you that you might want to introduce?
Oh, that's my daughter.
Welcome.
And Tara and Richard's sister's here, and Richard's dad's here. Oh, wow.
We all stand up. Richard, thank you very, very much for the 35 years you've given to Tarrant County. Let's give all our employees. We have refreshments in 504C. We welcome you all to go back and to partake in those, and we'll kind of pause here a moment and give you all a chance to head that direction. somebody doesn't know, it's because they're sitting in somebody's place in the church.
Exactly, exactly. What are you doing, Mrs. Cable?
I'm going to turn the fan off in a minute, but I was... It's been too hard to have these hot flashes, and she's not doing too good a job.
I didn't say a word.
Feels pretty good to me.
Well,
Cowboy Stadium.
next we have a resolution for the city of Keller. Commissioner Fickus.
Yes, we do. This is a resolution recognizing the city of Keller for being named the ranked seventh in the nation by Money Magazine, and I will read the resolution. Whereas in the upcoming August issue of Money Magazine, the city of Keller is ranked seventh in the nation among cities with a population under 50,000 as the best place to live. And whereas the city was recognized for its economic strength, home values, public schools, immaculate parks, fantastic county commissioner, and other attributes that contribute to the outstanding quality.
I'm not sure you're going to get your resolution.
I have lived a little bit. Okay.
It may fail 3-2. Or 3-1. No second.
Whereas the city of Keller has tripled in growth since 1990 while continuing to attract major businesses to the area. And whereas the new town hall and Keller Point have enhanced accessibility to city government and provided an outstanding recreational facility for the citizens in Keller. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby congratulate the city of Keller on being recognized by Money Magazine and wish them continued economic growth and success. I think we have the mayor, the city manager, and a number of other people. If y'all will meet us at the podium, Mayor.
You can't give them a plaque until you make a motion.
And I will make a motion to approve.
Second. You're lucky there. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, I got it passed, Mayor. You want to introduce everybody else?
I would, please, and I would also like to reaffirm that they're outstanding county commissioner remarks. So, we have our Mayor Pro Tem, John Baker, City Councilman Mitch Holmes, and our outstanding city manager, Dan O'Leary.
Why don't y'all come up here and we'll get a
Come up
picture?
here, guys.
Y'all get around here. Come on, Mitch. Get in here.
You get behind it. Put the big guys in the back.
Back of the bus.
Hang on there. Come on. See what she's doing?
She does. Very confident.
Well, okay, let me do one more since
One
I'm
more.
so... Thank you, guys.
And if I could, I would like to thank the entire Commissioners Court. This recognition obviously is very nice to receive, but it just reflects upon not only the city of Keller, but all our neighboring communities here in the Metroplex, and more importantly, Tarrant County itself. I think it says a really strong message about the entire area. So this is not something that the city of Keller accomplished. It's a joint effort between ourselves, all our neighboring communities, and more importantly, Tarrant County. And we really do appreciate all the support you folks have given us over the years, and he really is a good commissioner. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Mayor. You bet. Did you recognize?
Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have 4 additional items to bring to the court this morning. Item number 1, we're requesting that the court approve Amendment number 3 to the lease agreements for the lease of space at 2300 and 1100 Circle Drive at the Resource Connection with Gwynn Healthcare Technologies and Sear Jobs for Progressive National.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
For the court on item number 2, we're requesting that the court approve Amendment number 6 to MHMR of Tarrant County Early Childhood Intervention Program for their lease agreement with the Resource Connection.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, members of the court, on item number 3, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the creation of a staff writ attorney position to provide writ-related legal services to the 9 district courts hearing criminal cases in Tarrant County. The effective date of that would be September 1, 2009.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, members of the court, on item number 4, we're requesting that the court approve article of incorporation and bylaws for the LGC to aid and assist in the development of high-speed passenger rail service within the South, Central, and Gulf Coast high-speed rail corridors. This is in the form of a resolution also to appoint directors to the LGC and appoint Commissioner Fickus as the county's representative to the LGC's Board of Directors.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Tidwell.
Our first item for consideration by the court this morning is to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the 9 months ended June 30th, 2009.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for June 09. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our other item is to ask that the court receive and file the auditor's report for the Tarrant County Sheriff's Commissary operations for the period ended September 30th, 2008.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Woods.
Judge, Commissioners, it is requested that the Commissioners Court approve the payment of the following 2 claims you have on your agenda by the Risk Management Board.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
May need some defensive driving here.
We do have that.
Huh?
We do have that.
Is it required when there's an accident?
Within the policy, the vehicle policy does require you're supposed to take a defensive driving class within 60 days after the at-fault accident, yes.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
After close.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
We have 5 items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So move.
Second.
A motion is second to receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Second item, we're asking the court to approve an extension of project employment in the district clerk's office. The district clerk is requesting this extension. This is a project employee who's been assigned to the scanning project for the last several years. The cost of this extension is approximately $26,000 to the Records Preservation Fund, excluding fringe benefits. This would be for 1 additional year.
So this is not a general fund position?
No, sir.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is this person, are they considered temporary? Or
Yes, it's a temporary position.
I just wonder if I'm going to have to recognize them for 5 years of service with the county.
We're getting pretty close.
Temporary position. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The third item, we're asking the court to approve out of class pay extension in juvenile services. The court may recall that we have a couple of folks assigned to the JCMS project that have left a need for other staff to step up and assume duties. This is an operations manager who's assumed the duties of the assistant facility administrator, who again is assigned to the JCMS project. This is a request for a 90-day extension that expires at the end of November, and we're looking at an impact to the general fund of $2,700.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4, we're asking the court to approve amendment number 1 to the Flexible Benefit Plan Administrative Services Agreement between Payflex Systems and Tarrant County. Court recalls Payflex is the administrator for the county's Section 125 accounts. This is a 3-year renewal agreement that will take us through the end of 2011 at an estimated cost of approximately $141,000.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our 5th and final item, we're asking the court to approve amendment number 1 to the Administrative Services Agreement for COBRA Retiree Direct Billing Administration between Payflex Systems and Tarrant County. Again, Payflex also handles our retiree and billing, our retiree billing and COBRA billing. We had some language that we've actually added to the agreement to address the COBRA subsidy that was a requirement as part of the stimulus package. Certain employers are required to subsidize COBRA premiums for certain employees, and so we've amended the language in our agreement to reflect that responsibility. This is a 3-year agreement that will take us through the end of December 2011 at a cost of approximately $38,000.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Refresh my memory. Is this not something where the federal government was supposed to reimburse?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Did we get reimbursed for that?
I don't believe we've had any employees former employees who've actually taken advantage of the subsidy, but you're correct. The way that it works is that Tarrant County and other eligible or covered employers actually notify employees who've left county service, and it's not every separation. For example, you don't notify folks that have retired. You don't notify folks that have resigned. The law actually addresses involuntary terms. So there's a certain category that we look at. Payflex notifies those individuals, and then those individuals let us know if they want to participate by accepting the subsidy. If we provide the subsidy, then actually Tarrant County is able to then write that off, as I understand it.
So this is
to take credit for that.
$30-something thousand that Payflex is charging us to do this?
No, sir. The vast majority of that, I believe all except for about 800, is actually the majority of it is for the billing, what Payflex charges us to bill individuals who leave Tarrant County for COBRA, to receive their COBRA notice, or their retirement statements. That's the vast majority of that $38,000. I believe 790 of that is actually attributed to the notices that were sent out initially to the group of, again, covered employees. So that's a very small portion of the $38,000. It's the same rate that we've paid Payflex for the last 3 years.
So in other words,
For just administrative services.
So in other words, if we weren't doing the ARRA, then this would be simply a renewal of the contract.
Correct.
For a 3-year period to provide normal services that we've had in the past, and
Right.
and that amount would be $790 less than what we're asking now.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glenn. Public Health, Ms. Brewer. Good morning.
one item for your approval this morning. We have a contract for services with Dr. Stephen Becker for educational support services for Public Health Department's Advanced Practice Center.
Move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
Your Honor, the members of the court, we have 9 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2009-077. This is our annual contract for the purchase of a 10,000-pound capacity diesel-powered forklift. Recommendation will be to award on a per unit price basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors that meet specifications. The bid that we received from Equipment Depot, we must recommend rejection for them not meeting the electrical and the engine requirements.
Move for approval. Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2009-080A, showing a contract for miscellaneous medical supplies and disposables, specifically nitrile gloves. Recommendation would be to award to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique on a per unit price basis. Again, we have a recommendation for rejection from a company called Pyramid School Products. They didn't meet the specifications for textured fingertips.
Move approval.
A second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 3 is also a bid award recommendation for bid number 2009-105. It's our annual contract for preventative maintenance on our standby generators. Recommendation would be to award on a per unit price basis. Again, awarding to these primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique. We have a rejection recommendation also from a company called Kentech Enterprises. They had excessive response time for this particular service, and we recommend rejection of that bid.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4 is also a bid award recommendation for bid number 2009-117, sale of recycled paper. Recommendation would be to award to the high bidder, Evergreen Fiber Sales, selling our mixed ledger for $120 a ton, our cardboard for $85 a ton.
Move for approval. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 5 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2009-119, signing a contract for pre-employment polygraph services. Recommendation will be to award on a per unit price basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 6 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2009-124. This was a bid for the purchase of a steam sterilizer with the Public Health Department. Recommendation would be to award to a company called Primus Sterilizer Company in the amount of $58,517. Again, we have a recommendation for rejection from a company called Geneva Scientific. They could not meet the space requirements that the lab allowed.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 7 is an item in regards to RFQ number 2009-125. This is a request for qualifications for professional engineering and construction materials testing for the Northwest Sub Courthouse. We are seeking approval to conduct negotiations with the 3 firms as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 8 is an item in regards to our bid number 2009-078, signing a contract for inmate uniforms. We are recommending rejection of the 5 bids that we received and asking for permission to rebid with revised specifications.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Last item, number 9, is item in regards to bid number 2009-133, signing a contract for welding equipment supplies and industrial medical gases. We are, again, recommending rejection of all bids. seeking permission to rebid with revised specifications. We did receive one bid, but they did not meet those specs at all, which is the reason for our recommendation.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any appointments? Being none, then we have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of claims, including the addendum.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have several items for the court this morning. The first is a review of the proposed budget by the 911 Emergency Assistance District. Mr. Petrie is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Your Honor, Commissioners, Mr. Mania, staff, thank you for allowing me to brief you this morning concerning the 2010 budget of the Tarrant County 911 District. Since the first call was answered on August 2nd, 1987, over 36 million 911 calls have been processed through the system, and we have never raised our fee. The 2009-2010 budget has been crafted to support the district's forward mission in a number of critical areas. Continued emphasis on increasing wireless 911 reliability through continued wireless accuracy testing of new wireless devices and services, and expansion of our wireless one-on-one training in the public safety answering points, which we call Where's Waldo. Last year, 72% of our calls were from wireless devices. In June of this year, 77.31% were from wireless devices. Wireless is very important to us in the district. Continued efforts to assist in reducing the personnel cost of our member PSAPs through assistance in recruitment, pre-hire testing and training and retention programs for 911 call takers and operators. A focus on continuity and continuation of operations through proof of concept on our regional location site strategy, and an expanded program of on-site power support to enhance the ability of our public safety answering points to remain in their primary facility and sustain normal operations during limited commercial power incidents. Planned progress on the so-called next generation of 911 services through continued interaction with our user base, proof of concept projects, development of IP-enabled network, and upgrades to customer premise equipment to support the migration to NG 911. As we prepare for and subsequently begin implementation of the next generation of 911 service, communication centers will begin receiving calls from very non-traditional sources: text messaging, instant messaging, video captures, and social networking sites such as MySpace, Twitter, and Facebook. We will be receiving calls, a tweet sent by a twit through Twitter, and we need to be prepared for it.
You get that, Commissioner Johnson? You ready to tweet?
Yeah.
I have set up Commissioner Johnson a Twitter account, by the way, and I'll be briefing him on that later.
He's following you, huh?
All promise to be a few sources of these heavy quote calls. With all seriousness, we do expect to begin receiving calls from social networking devices once we allow them into the network. Included in this year's budget request is a sum of $1 million for next generation PSAP support. We will be surveying our public safety communications managers, our customers, to get their feedback on the level of support they may need as we begin implementing the next generation of 911 services. The first step in the information gathering process will be to focus on what next generation 911 is. That definition is still out there. What it is or what it will be in Tarrant County. Through a series of surveys and face-to-face meetings, we'd like to garner their input. We will then initiate reports back to our Board of Managers and provide high-level briefings, probably through the Mayor's Council, to mayors and city managers. While it is difficult to estimate how long it will take to gather this information and formulate recommendations, it will occur sooner rather than later. Please be watching your email and snail mail for further information. Our budget in the most simplistic of terms. Revenues, we're anticipating revenue collection of approximately $11.7 million. That's up nearly 2%. We do see expenses will be in the neighborhood of $20.1 million, and that will necessitate a withdrawal from our equipment replacement fund of $8.5 million. We will be doing almost $9 million worth of upgrades in our public safety answering points next year. Our equipment replacement fund will then have a balance of approximately $10 million, which we'll use over the next 2 years for further equipment replacement.
So when you say you're pulling, that $10 million is after you've pulled out 8.5?
Yes, sir. And then the next 2 years, we'll be pulling about $7 million each year of those out of that fund. That does create a deficit on paper.
So there's something missing here.
It does create a deficit on paper. However, I'm confident that there will be economies of scale as we move forward. We have also taken an initiative to audit all of our service fees to be sure all the providers are providing service fees, the proper service fees. So I'm confident that we'll come out
How does the equipment replacement fund get its money?
Only through excesses in our budget.
They pre-fund that account on an annualized basis.
Instead of borrowing money, that's an excellent term, instead of borrowing money, we pre-fund that account over time. I have provided you a complete budget packet for your review. This packet contains specific information about our revenues and expenditures. It also contains a 5-year forecast, which at the present time has red balances, and an audited balance sheet, which you requested a few years ago for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2008. While it is difficult or even impossible to project future costs, I feel confident we will have enough reserves to meet our next generation upgrade demands. We have to be able to plan today to implement technology tomorrow that hasn't even been thought of yet. MySpace, Twitter, so on. Your Honor, I'll be happy to answer any questions you or the Commissioners Court may have, and thank you again for your continued support.
I'm looking at the information. I see. Who does your audit?
Firm out of Waco, Padello, I believe.
I know who they are.
I don't know how to pronounce their. I'm sorry.
Padello is pretty quick. You're pretty close.
Am I pretty close?
You're pretty close.
He's our expert on pronunciation.
He did a very good job a while ago, Al.
Your time will come too.
That's him.
Okay, so you're saying then that the next 2 years, you feel like right now you're in pretty good shape, because if you're saying you're going to be spending money out of that fund, then that means we're not going to be replenishing that fund with any excess revenues over the next. We're certainly not doing it this year because we're borrowing 8.5.
Right. The next 3 to 4 years, we'll be drawing from that fund instead of replenishing it.
But you don't think you'll be drawing more than $10 million out of it?
I do not believe so.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Your question was, are they going to draw more than $10 million out of it?
What's the? I mean, what I heard is there's 19 million in there right now. We're projecting to draw 8.5 next year, and that the only way that is replenished is if we have revenues in excess of expenditures, which obviously we're not going to have next year. And I didn't hear that we were going to have it over the next couple of years. So that means we're going to have a fund balance of $10 million to draw on for the next 2 to 5 years. And I'm just hopeful. I hear what I hear you saying is that that's not a problem.
On paper, we're about $2 million short in that equipment reserve fund. I believe there will be economies of scale that will take place during that upgrade, and also with our current auditing process of our service providers, we will garner some additional revenue also.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Why would someone want to contact 911 from a social networking site rather than picking up the phone and dialing 911?
Well, Commissioner, I encourage you to get 12 teenagers together in a room. And 11 7 of those teenagers will tell you that today they can text message to 911, which they cannot. Our society today, especially teenagers and young adults, do not talk on the phone. I've given you the example of my own daughter before. 12,000 text messages 1 month and 7 minutes of airtime. They don't talk on the phone anymore. They always text. And us gray-haired guys have to keep up because they text me too.
Yeah, but they can text directly rather than going through a social networking site, can they not?
They will be able to, yes, not today. But there's the social networking sites, many of those individuals become so complacent, especially with Twitter, because Twitter is a always available, always online service, if you will. You can send a tweet, and that is the term, you can send a tweet to anyone, to your own site or to someone else's site 24 hours a day. And many of those individuals, my own daughter included, has the Twitter site up on her cell phone all the time. So we're concerned that there will be...
I got the tweet, Paul. It's Facebook and MySpace that I have some questions about.
We have seen, if you step back a couple of years and you look at AIM, which was AOL's instant messaging, the first instant messaging product, there's more than one documented case of an individual, especially a suicide, occurring on AIM.
Online.
And to the ability to be able to send a 911 call, which that's a very generic term, but send an emergency response call through one of those social networking and instant messaging sites is critical to us.
As you mentioned earlier, it's planning for the unknown.
Planning for the unknown. Rick Brunson, a couple of years ago, challenged me on my statement that we have to plan now for something 2 years from now. And I believe I had 13 items that I was able to show him in the last 2 years that had come up without us being aware of that they were coming.
Well, he's up with you now because he's requested a similar item on our next Information Technology Steering Committee briefing. So he's a believer now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
We'll be back to you in another meeting for final approval. Thank you. Subsequent, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Members of the Court, we go to item B. This is an update on the H1N1 influenza. I believe Dr. Parker is going to start this presentation, and Ms. Brewer is also going to add to it. Dr. Parker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. As we are all acutely aware, novel influenza A, H1N1 2009 virus, began to be identified in Tarrant County in late April of this year. This virus has since spread across the United States and even now is continuing to circulate the globe. Quite briefly, let's review some of the basic information about influenza viruses that may help us to understand how we arrived at where we are today. Birds are the primary host for all influenza viruses, and the strain is identified by the H and the N surface proteins. I'm sorry you can't see that on the slide. The light blue is not projecting well, but it's H and N surface proteins, standing for hemagglutinin and neuraminidase. Flu viruses change rapidly. There is a continual process of genetic drift where there is a slight recombination or a point mutation, which makes a change in the virus itself. There's also antigenic shift, which is a sporadic, unpredictable change that changes the virus. And then there is genetic reassortment, which is a mixing of the genetic material from two different flu viruses in one co-infected host. It could possibly be pigs or humans or any other animal that is susceptible to influenza. It should be noted the current H1 influenza strain is a quadruple reassortment, meaning the viral strain contains genetic material from two different swine strains, one avian strain, and one human strain. Pandemic influenza describes a sporadic, unpredictable worldwide epidemic. Pandemic flu is different from seasonal flu in that it will appear suddenly, no one will have immunity, it can spread globally quickly, it may occur in waves, and it could be mild or severe. This is a slide demonstrating the WHO pandemic phases there. The first novel influenza A H1N patient in the United States was confirmed by laboratory testing at the CDC on April 15th. And then it was quickly determined that the virus was spreading from person to person. On April 22nd, the CDC activated its Emergency Operations Center. On April 26, 2009, the United States government declared a public health emergency related to the novel influenza A H1N1, and effective June 11, 2009, the World Health Organization changed its pandemic phase level from 5 to 6. This is a picture of the global situation as of the last printing date of this map, which is July 24th. There have been 134,503 cases across the globe, including the United States, and total reported deaths were 816. This information is as of the 22nd of July. On the 16th of July, the WHO announced that it would discontinue issuing its global tables showing the number of confirmed cases from all countries. Regular updates would be provided describing the situation in newly affected countries. They did so because the numbers themselves are not an accurate estimate of the prevalence of the disease across the globe. The Southern Hemisphere is in the middle of its influenza season. No changes have been identified in the epidemiology or the viral characteristics have been noted of the specimens that are being tested at the CDC. There have been cases of Tamiflu, generic oseltamivir-resistant viral infections, but there is no evidence of community circulation of these viruses at this time. And if you remember from seasonal influenza this year, one strain was resistant to oseltamivir or Tamiflu. There has been no evidence of reassortment with the past seasonal influenza with the current novel influenza A H1N1, making this resistance. National situation, there have been 43,771 cases, 302 deaths. The disease has been noted in all 50 states, as well as in Washington, D.C., and the territories of Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands. This information is as of 7/24, which was the last day that the CDC would be reporting information on individual cases. The situation in Texas, 5,219 cases, 28 reported deaths. Disease has been noted in 128 of the 254 of the state's counties. This information was as of the 29th of July. August 1st was the last day that the Texas Department of State Health Services would be reporting information on individual cases. Situation in Tarrant County, we've had 218 cases, 4 hospitalizations, and no deaths due to the novel influenza A H1N1. Tarrant County has the 9th highest case number in Texas. This information is as of the 31st of July. The federal government response to novel influenza A H1N1. Vaccination is a very important part of the response to a pandemic influenza, and a mass vaccination program of even modest scale will involve extraordinary efforts at the federal, state, and local levels. This information is taken from a brief by the CDC. Information about the 2009 novel influenza H1N1 vaccine that is currently under development. According to Dr. Ann Shukad, the quote, this is a quote from her, "They are expecting vaccine doses this fall and production is on track." At this point, there is likely going to be a 2-dose series required for the novel influenza A H1N1, meaning that every person will require 2 separate shots for this disease. There will be 5 target groups and plans for prioritization among these groups if necessary because of limited vaccine supply. The first individuals who would receive the vaccine are the target group, which is listed in the slides: pregnant females, household contacts of children less than 6 months of age, healthcare workers and emergency medical service personnel, children and young adults 6 months to 24 years of age, and non-elderly adults with increased risk of developing complications from influenza. And this is the slide to say that there are still everyday ways to protect your health, and this is the message that we've had throughout the response to the novel influenza H1N1, which is cover your mouth and your nose with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Wash your hands. If you're sick, stay home. Avoid other persons. Thank you. And right now, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Brewer regarding the response.
Excuse me just a minute, Dr. Parker.
Yes, sir.
Why would the CDC and the Texas Department of Health cease to give information on individual cases? And if not them, then who?
The reason that they are still providing information regarding hospitalizations and deaths, but not on individual cases per state. And the reason is that the number of individual cases per state is thought to be an underestimate of the disease prevalence actually in the community. And so it doesn't appear to be accurate.
But if it's the best number we have, then why not use it as at least an indication of the spread of the prevalence of the spread of the disease?
Because at this point, with the virus being mild in virulence as it is, we know it's in the community. We have the numbers to demonstrate that it's already prevalent in the community, and further counting is resource intensive, and it doesn't add any new information. The new information is if it is in a location where it hasn't been previously noted, or you're noticing changes regarding hospitalizations or increased deaths. But just knowing that it's in a few more people in a certain area does not actually provide any additional information with which to respond to the virus.
So it's kind of like it's almost like it's a normal flu, and therefore we're not going to worry about it unless it does something or exhibits something that it has not exhibited before?
Correct. At this point, I'm not going to say it's a normal flu because we're waiting to see if it does mutate or change, but it is being treated like a normal flu. In a normal flu season, we do not count individual cases of flu per state. It isn't reported that way, but we do monitor hospitalizations and deaths, and we do monitor activity of the flu, but not individual cases.
Okay.
It's resource intensive. That's one of the main reasons why both the WHO, the CDC, and the Texas Department of State Health Services has stopped reporting the individual numbers.
But they will be doing some tracking.
Oh, yes, absolutely they'll be doing tracking. Just because they're not reporting those individual numbers does not mean that tracking has stopped. They are still tracking the virus. It's just not going to be reported in the same manner that it has been. We will look for changes in the virus related to virulence.
So if someone presents themselves at a doctor's office with flu-like symptoms, is the doctor still taking the sample, sending it to you to determine whether it truly is an H1N1? Or are they just saying, you got the flu, we don't know exactly what strain you have, but until you show some other particular symptoms or more extreme symptoms, we're not going to identify whether it's an H1N1 or whether it's a typical normal flu or it's something else?
Correct. If you present to the doctor with mild symptoms, they would not be testing you for the novel influenza A H1N1. However, should your symptoms worsen and you require hospitalization or further treatment, then they would submit a specimen that would be tested at our laboratory to determine if it were the H1N1 virus.
One of my concerns is that if we are still in the midst of a flu pandemic, then it seems to me that we are de-emphasizing the seriousness of that pandemic and causing the public to be less vigilant about it by the way we're going after this thing.
I understand your point, but I don't think that changes in reporting are asking the public to be less vigilant. Right now, we're asking them to treat it as they would a annual seasonal influenza regarding symptoms and then further testing. But the reason it's not less vigilant is because you're still looking for more virulent cases or more severe cases of the virus. Knowing that the disease is already out there and in large quantities in not only the community but in the state, the nation, and across the globe. Testing each individual person for that is not a best use of the resources. Waiting until not waiting, but testing someone who has more severe symptoms to determine if that virus may somehow have changed is a better place to spend the money for testing than on just documenting it in, 1,000 or 2,000 more people. You want to see if it's changed, not if it's continuing as the same.
Dr. Parker, I don't want to be argumentative about this, and I know that these are not your policies, so I don't want to be guilty of killing the messenger. I recognize that we are not telling the public with words to be less vigilant. I'm concerned that we're telling the public with our actions to be less vigilant. The public has a way of hearing and understanding messages that are not necessarily spoken in words. And if we want the public to be vigilant about this thing, it's my sense that we ought to be acting like it's serious.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner, we are doing a lot of public information on this, and we're preparing materials that we'll be distributing through the schools. So it's not as if we're not going to take this. We hear exactly what you're saying, and we are going to be vigilant, and the public information program that's going to accompany this is going to stress the importance of areas that you see actually on your screen there, but also what to do. You have flu-type symptoms. Dr. Parker, let me ask you a question. You say that this is a two-shot series. What's the time between those two shots?
At this point, it's currently 1 month.
Okay, so what will happen if individuals get this vaccination, then they'll come in and get the first shot, and then in approximately 30 days they'll come back to get the next shot?
Yes. And I just wanted to add that we will be vigilant in Tarrant County regarding novel influenza H1, and the best way to do that is with the everyday steps to protect your health, but also with education about the vaccine that will become available. Not only the H1N1 vaccine, but your annual seasonal influenza vaccine. Just because the novel virus, the novel influenza H1 is here, doesn't mean that you're any less susceptible to the seasonal influenza. Even if it's 3 shots, you need to be there. The target group who would get all 3 shots needs to be there for all 3 shots. Everyone needs to get their annual seasonal influenza, and those in the target groups first, and then the other groups need to get the 2 vaccines for the novel influenza H1N1. And that's where we'll be vigilant. We're still monitoring the situation, but the education and receiving vaccinations are where we need to focus at this point.
How are we going about estimating the number of vaccines that we need to have in this area? And how are we going to go about getting the word out with regards to those targeted populations? Is that what Lou's going to address?
I'll defer to Ms. Brewer for that.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Parker.
That was a great segue into the next section. And picking up on your concerns and comments, Commissioner Brooks, and also your segue, Judge Whitley, what we're looking at now is we've spent the summer working on after-action types of things and meeting with our community partners and looking at our own internal capacities as well as the community capacities. What we're looking at right now is what's going to be happening this fall. And the vigilance is going to be internationally looking at what does this virus do. It may not do anything. It may just stay the way it is, which means we're seeing mild to moderate illness. But how many people are going to get this H1N1 flu? We already know that during a regular seasonal flu, some years we have a very mild year, and some years we have a very severe year. So we'll be looking for that, just like we've done for seasonal flu. The difference this year is going to be we've got 2 different types to look at. We've got the seasonal, and then we've got this novel H1N1. We also now, as Dr. Parker said, we have 2 sets of vaccines. And the target populations for the 2 vaccines is different. So we're really going to need all of our community partners' help in keeping that differentiation out there for the community. Because seasonal flu vaccine, we usually are looking at our senior population as the largest group that we want to make sure, not the only group, but the largest group that we want to make sure gets the seasonal flu vaccine. With the H1N1, what we found last spring is that it's largely affecting the younger population. And so when we get that vaccine, and you've just heard that it'll be 2 doses, more than likely, then we are going to be looking to reach pregnant women are an at-risk group in either situation. But we're going to be looking at that younger population, most of whom are in the schools. And we're already talking with our school partners about how can we work with you and really leverage our resources out in the community to get the vaccination process up and running in a timely manner. We are hoping that we will receive our seasonal flu vaccine in the early fall. As soon as we get that, our teams will be out giving the seasonal flu vaccine like they have every year for those populations. The earliest that we've heard that we would get the H1N1 vaccine is sometime in October. That's the earliest. So please don't hold us to that. And then we would need to immediately, and usually on any given year, we're still giving seasonal flu vaccine. So we've got double duty this fall, if you will. Triple duty, really, because we're going to have to go back and give that 3rd dose. And so we are in the process now of meeting with many of our community partners that might be able to help us. We'll be looking at our Medical Reserve Corps volunteers. We used many of them last spring, and we need to be using many more. We'll be talking to school health nurses. We'll be talking to clinics. We'll be talking to private providers. We'll be looking at our own staff, although we don't have the depth there in terms of who's already giving immunizations, but anybody that can will be getting them ready to go and helping with immunizations. So it's going to be a community-wide effort in getting all 3 vaccination rounds done this year.
Lou, do you envision school health nurses administering this vaccine in the schools?
I would not rule that out. That's certainly a scenario that everybody's looking at nationwide. And so we will be meeting with our ISDs and talking to them about that capability and that possibility. I went to the back end of my presentation, and we can re-emphasize that in a minute, but I just did want to review with you. We have looked at possibilities for cross-training of our staff, to pull in more staff that might be in other areas such as TB or STD, to bring them in to help with this event, should we need them. That automatically means that we have to revise our continuity of operations plans, which means that if activities increase, if we've pulled nurses from clinic situations and other programs to help with vaccination programs, then we may have to look at reduced services in other areas. So I just wanted to let you know that. I've already mentioned the Medical Reserve Corps volunteers. They were great last spring. They were great in the hurricanes. And we will use them more and more during this vaccination event. We are developing a web-based lab reporting form. We hope that this will circumvent some of the early issues we had with incomplete reporting forms coming into the lab, should we get back into that scenario. And that would be if we see a change in the virus and we go back to testing and confirming lab results. We have increased our lab capacity, and we really appreciate the county's support in this area in terms of looking at additional equipment and space. We are cross-training more staff, and we will have double the capacity in our lab by late fall.
So that, we're bringing in another piece of equipment,
Yes.
and then we're looking at the possibilities of, in addition to that, bringing in the trained staff so that we can do the tests around the clock if need be.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we were doing them around the clock last time, but it was at the expense of a precious few. So we'll have more people that can be doing that, and maybe be able to let somebody go home and rest up a little more
Are we doing that in
frequently.
coordination with other folks within the area, or are we doing that all with employees within public health?
We are doing, it's an excellent question. We are doing it with our own employees. We have looked at other resources in the community, and at this time, there's great interest to support us, but the fit is not there in terms of the capability to do that right now.
Have we determined that there are, like UNT, or that have pieces of equipment that could be used, or because of the chain of whatever's...
We've had several meetings with UNT. They've been very interested and very willing to work with us, but right now they're not at the point of being able to conduct the tests that we conduct.
Okay.
One thing that we have done is we've asked the state to allocate $450,000 to the county through emergency preparedness to acquire that new equipment. And because we are a regional lab, the probability looks very good that we'll get that money. So the equipment that we buy, we will buy that out of grant monies rather than county-related monies.
Good.
And the one other thing on the operations is that we did use the point-in-time for reporting model last time, and we'll continue to do that in the future should we need to do that. Education and communications, we're going to be putting even more information on our website, the county website. What we want to do is really, should we get into the hecticness of last spring again, we may or may not, and it may be more around who gets what vaccination, when, and where, rather than the actual exposure or spread of the virus. We'll put as much information as we can possibly get onto the web, and we'll be directing people there. We will also have our staff, senior staff, available to answer critical community partner questions. We'll be, again, cross-training and having more people available to do that. We have been meeting with various groups out in the community. We are establishing a formal advisory committee made up of medical resources in the community. We did call upon them, and they were great in the spring, and we're going to formalize that process in the next few days. We will be doing ongoing risk communications, starting with today, which again is that message of practice your prevention now with staying home if you're sick, not being around people who are sick, covering your mouth, washing your hands frequently, very simple things to do, and then moving on to get your seasonal flu shot when it's available if you're in that at-risk category, and then get your 2 doses of H1N1 when it's available if you're in those at-risk categories. We will continue to work with the media to get our messages out, and we have had many stakeholder meetings over the summer, and we continue to have more of those in the next few weeks. We've met with municipalities, ISDs, the medical community. We have a federal meeting tomorrow. We have state meetings going on right now and a regional meeting going on right now. And I will be glad to take any other questions.
Any questions?
I thank you for what you're
Thanks, Lou.
doing, and I really believe that the focus on not just this influenza, but the same responsible behavior on individuals' behaviors is important for all the influenza. It's something that we've not taken seriously, even though you read the number of deaths every year, and it is quite surprising because people come to work when they're sick and don't think about it, that could have an impact on so many other people.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Court members, just to restate what we said earlier today, it relates to the 2010 budget issues. We are going to have budget hearings beginning next Monday, the 10th, in the courtroom here. They will start at 9 o'clock in the morning. You have received the information that you requested prior to those hearings. If you have any questions, you either contact the budget office or our office. Your Honor, that's all that I have this morning. I did note that you have several audience participation forms.
Okay, first I have George Arias. Please state your name and your address, and so that the clerks can get that into the record, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is George Arias. I live at 3629 Bluegrass Drive in Grand Prairie, Texas. And I was going to seek liberty and justice. We placed for today, and justice has eluded me again, because I see that I don't want to take your time and waste your time and make a presentation that you cannot help me with. So I will merely ask that for unanimous consent that my prepared remarks be part of the record.
If you will give those remarks to the clerk, then they can include those in the record, and we can do that at that time. As I think, as someone has mentioned before, because it is not an agenda item, we're not allowed to respond to your comments.
I understand.
So if you'll turn those over to the ladies, they will make sure that it's put into the record.
You will pardon my tenacity or my stubbornness, because I worked on this thing for a week, and I drove from Grand Prairie to present it, but I'll just present it to the clerk, and I thank you for your time, and thank the members of the court.
Thank you, sir. Next is, I believe is it Tom Franklin?
I've met with Reverend Franklin and satisfied his concerns for now. He is no longer here.
Okay. That's it?
That's all that we have this morning.
Then I believe we have one shot that we want to put up on the screen, and this is of proud grandmother, Hannah Kate, daughter. So that's the happiest I've seen her in a long time. So again, we'll thank the family and congratulate them as they get back. So if that's it, then the Commissioners Court will now recess the open session and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under Sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Code. Session will now address the following matters.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is under the DA section, item E1, requesting authorization to accept a subrogation check in the amount of $10,736.06.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes
Marty's here.
unanimously.
Thank you. This is under item number 3, requesting authorization to have the county judge sign this claim on behalf of Tarrant County, seeking recovery as a class action class member.
Move approval for the judge to sign.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
There being no further business, we're adjourned.